Right. I think we should get a move on. Hopefully, some more people will join us. So, big thank you to the Tempus team for joining us today. And we have a couple of their members on the stage today with us who's going to kindly answer a bunch of questions for us. So, we have a segment where we will ask some questions from myself. In fact, I've got a bunch of questions I'd love to ask the Tempus team. And in addition, we have some fantastic questions which you guys in the community have put forward to the Tempest team. So hopefully we'll cover a bunch of those. A little bit conscious on time because the Tempest team, this is their second AMA of today. They have another one straight after this. And I do know that they're very busy working on a number of things. So we'll try and keep this as short and sweet as possible. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I'm going to probably start by asking the guys on stage if you would like to give yourselves a brief introduction for the community.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. Maybe I can start by introducing myself and then Georgia will go after. So I actually have a legal background. I started my career as a derivatives lawyer back in London. I worked in Tokyo for a couple of years in derivatives and structured finance. I did mostly interest rate derivatives and equity derivatives work. And then after that, I joined another startup called Interlay as their head of operations. Stayed in that role for about 6 months. And then April this year, Georgia and I started Tempus.
Yep, I can tell a bit about myself. I'm George. I'm coming from more tech background. I worked initially at Microsoft, then moved to a couple of computer vision startups. And after that, I went to Ethereum Foundation, working on core Solidity team. And yeah, as David mentioned, from April, we are together in Tempus.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the intro. So how did you guys kind of get together and start Tempus?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I was working in this field for quite a while, and I was just getting involved in DeFi, and I thought like, how do we build a protocol that can function in a more like capital efficient and user friendly way into this whole future yield tokenization and fixed yield segment. And I was kind of looking for people that could help me implement this on the technical side and help put the team together. Obviously, found like to start a protocol by yourself doesn't really work too much. So that's when Georgia and I met, and then basically we hit it off, and then the rest is history.
Amazing. Well, that I guess leads on to my next question, which is, I mean, you've given us a little bit of info there already, but what inspired, obviously, the inception of Tempus, and what is the project itself trying to achieve?
Right. So maybe I can answer the second part of the question first. So what does Tempus, what are we trying to achieve? I think like the protocol is designed for multiple things, and it's hard to say exactly like which category we fall into, but I think overall you can say that Tempus is a fixed rate protocol and also a future yield tokenization protocol. What we are trying to build is basically a decentralized, more like DeFi native version of whatever are interest rate swap products in traditional finance. There are some key differences, and I think like my background in traditional finance helped figure this out. Is in traditional finance, if you think about interest rate swaps, they're basically a giant financial product that exists over various various parts of finance. So, for example, if you're getting a fixed rate mortgage, that is normally, otherwise a variable rate mortgage, but there's a swap involved somewhere. So you're interacting with these kind of products in all sorts of different ways of life. But there are some crucial differences, like interest rate swaps in traditional finance, they're normally non-collateralized. And what that means is that you're exposed to the credit risk of your counterparty. So if the counterparty to the trade goes bust, then you lose your money. This approach obviously doesn't really work in DeFi because you don't know who is taking the other side of the trade. So, one approach to solving this is asking for over collateralization on each trade, but that obviously comes with its drawbacks. So what we designed is, somewhat of a hybrid between trading futures and trading interest rate swaps. And we designed it in a way to make it, more capital efficient than existing approaches out there, and also make it more user friendly so that users can get a fixed rate interest in like a single swap, and they can provide liquidity in a single swap. They can deposit into a pool at any time. They can withdraw from any pool at any time. So we just kind of thought about like what are the best ways in which we can do all of these at the same time, and the Tempus is what we came up with.
Amazing. Did you want to try to sorry, because I think you've kind of covered both questions there really, because what you were trying to achieve and what kind of inspired what you were creating. I think has been very well covered in there. So I guess we'll jump on to kind of my personal next question, which was really like what attracted the Tempus project to utilize the tools that exist in Alchemist, such as I know that you've used an LBP via Copper, which congratulations to you guys. It was a very successful launch, and now obviously moving to use or utilize the Crucible Reward Program.
I think there are a couple of things here. First of all, we already had like a lot of synergies with the Balancer team, and it kind of started off there because we're building the custom AMM that Tempus uses on Balancer V2. We were already kind of close with the Balancer team, and we were building the AMM there. So they got us basically we applied, and then we received the grant, and then since then we kind of worked very closely together. And actually, they were the ones who recommended Copper in the first place as a source of like excellent tooling for LBPs. Previously, all the DeFi projects had to build their own front end for it, and then that came with its own logistical nightmares. And now it's all made very simple. And actually, we were very happy that we went down this route. And then after that, since we had such a good experience with the Alchemist team, we thought like this would probably be the best way to incentivize the Balancer liquidity that we have.
Amazing. And I think the community is very much looking forward to this reward program. So just in case anyone who's joined us who's not aware, that's going to be going live in the next 20 minutes, so about 7:30 UTC. The requirement there is to have a temp ETH BPT token. So if you guys just check out the reward program page, you'll be able to read some more info there. So I did have a look at your website earlier, and obviously I'm aware that you guys are going to be launching to mainnet very soon. So if you could share a little bit of info on what you're planning to launch to those who are here today, and obviously how the users or the community can actually take maximum advantage of that launch as well.
Okay, I will take this one. So in 7 days from now, we will start Tempus on mainnet, and it will be for the beginning 2 LIDA staked ETH pools. One will mature at the end of March, the other one at the end of August. So it is kind of 3 and 9 month term pools. So after that, we will probably be rolling out stablecoin based pools in upcoming weeks, months, but we will announce this on time, basically. So how users can benefit from this? One way is just to provide liquidity with their staked ETH, and then they will earn additional swap fees on top of staking yield, which should be like very nice yield altogether. Then like users can just simply fix their future yield if they don't want to have like variable staked ETH yield. They can just go and fix the yield. And there's another thing, like if people want to speculate on the future yield, they can just leverage up their yield. That's all of this and a lot of guides and things people will be able to read on official Tempus Medium or on our Discord, and everyone is very welcome to ask questions about this in our Discord. So that's in short.
Perfect. And speaking about community taking advantage of what's there to offer, is Tempus open for community involvement? And if so, how can users how can people of the community actually get involved and help support the project itself?
So we already have like a pretty significant community on Discord. We're mostly active on Discord. We do have a Telegram, but it's kind of new, so it doesn't have that many people in it. But on Discord, we have something like, I think at this point, around 8,000 users in the Discord. And we've actually started building the community from a very early stage, since basically the inception of the idea, and continued ever since. What we have is basically the main tool for building the community for us was the SIRS Ambassador Program. And that is basically a way of rewarding early community users and basically anybody who contributed in one way or the other with our custom Tempus SIRS NFTs, which in my mind it functions more like a POAP. So I think in the future what it will be tied to is perhaps some liquidity mining benefits once you provide liquidity to Tempus, or they may be exchangeable for governance tokens later on at an exchange rate that's going to be set by governance or something similar like that. So I think the key crucial part is that people who participate in the community can still get these SIRS NFTs, and they will play an integral part in the Tempus protocol, and will give you some benefits over users that don't hold one. And this is kind of a little easy way for us to reward the early community. And so far it's worked really well. And I think the way that people can get involved is just to join our Discord, keep on top of the announcements, what we're doing right now, and we have certain missions. So we have AMAs, who can ask questions. They can share some of our news, and we have little bits and pieces of different missions going on every now and then. And we'll also let users know for what mission they can get how many NFTs. And then those NFTs will actually have hopefully some good value later on.
Perfect. So hopefully everyone here has heard all of that. I've dropped a link to the Tempus Discord server into the Alchemy channel. So feel free to go and check out their server and try to get involved. So I think those are all of my questions covered. I think it'd be only fair to jump straight into the community questions. And we'll start with a question from Zebra, which has asked, how big is the current Tempus team and how is the project funded?
Right. I can answer this pretty quickly. Basically, right now we have 11 people, soon to be 12 or 13, I think, probably later this month. And then we're scaling up to around 25 people, which is a pretty big leap for us. The Tempus team has been funded by VCs until basically a month ago. We raised a $2 million seed round back in June, and then we raised another $4 million strategic round in November, and then we did our LBP. Some of the proceeds from the LBP went to the team, and this means that overall, we're very well funded right now. So we have a 4 or 5 year runway at this point, even if we scale up to a team of 25. And with a very comfortable budget that can go towards marketing and all these other things as well. So we're hiring. So you guys can check out our angel list or cryptocurrency jobs, crypto jobs list. We're all on there, and we have a variety of roles, so you can apply.
Amazing. And those those listings are available on your website, or how would someone find those?
Yeah, they're on the website, but I think probably the best way is for us to just drop a link in the Tempus chat here so that people can find it a little bit easier.
Sounds good. Great. So moving on to the next question. I've got one from Rockstar3, and the question is, what makes you different from other DeFi projects with similar offerings?
Yes, I can take this. I think this requires a little bit of a more nuanced discussion about like how Tempus works, and I can try to touch on everything and explain at a high level without being too much, without going too much into the specifics. So Tempus, the way that Tempus works is, sorry, you deposit one yield-bearing token into Tempus, and then we split that into two different primitives. So one of which is a principal token, which is a zero coupon bond, and the other token is a future yield token, which is also a zero coupon bond. So we have these two zero coupon bonds, and what Tempus does is it allows users to trade these two newly created primitives against each other through an AMM that stands in the middle. What this allows people to do at high level terms is they can give up their exposure to the unknown future variable yield and swap it for somebody else's principal. What this means is, you can get certainty over how much interest and how much yield you're going to get during the life of that pool, and also the source of the fixed yield in this design is very different. In this design, you give up your exposure to the unknown future yield and swap it for somebody else's principal, and that's the source of your fixed yield. While in other designs, in other similar protocols, the source of the fixed yield is the principal token being sold at a discount, and that discount decreases over time as you reach maturity, and that's the source of your fixed yield. Tempus offers, I think a lot of flexibility in terms of when you can deposit into a pool and when you can withdraw from a pool. You can deposit at any time, you can withdraw at any time, even though you have fixed yield. You have the opportunity to take your money out of any pool before maturity. I think two other differences is basically that I like to emphasize is one of which is capital efficiency. So I think because how Tempus works, we trade the principal token directly against the yield token. And what this allows people to do is, liquidity providers to do specifically, is that they can maintain exposure to the entire underlying yield within, for staking or lending. Plus, because they only provide liquidity with that primitive, so with that, yield-bearing token like CDAI or staked ETH, and then that's being split into principals and yields, and that's being provided into the AMM. You maintain an exposure to the entire underlying yield, your entire staking yield. So in the context of Lido, you would still get the 5% yield, plus you get the swap fees on top of that yield. So your yield in this protocol, as a liquidity provider, will always be a combination of two different yields, and the yield is going to be higher than in similar protocols. The other thing that kind of ties into this is just like UX, and I think we put a lot of emphasis into this, so it's worth pointing out as well. People who just want to get a fixed yield, all they need to do, they just deposit ETH or stake ETH or any other token that they will support, and then they will receive principal tokens in return in one single transaction. So what you can do is you can get a fixed yield on your ETH in a single swap, which makes it super easy for people to use it. They can deposit into any time, withdraw anytime. So we're really trying to bring this new primitive not only to the institutions, but also to the retail people, which is, I think, differentiates us from other protocols as well.
Amazing. Sounds relatively complex, but it's a very, very good, clear explanation you've given. In fact, it's such a good answer that it's written off two other questions from the community. So thanks very much for that explanation. I'll jump to a kind of related question from Cold Press, which was, how does Tempus make sure there is enough yield to be paid out at maturity? And is it possible for Tempus to default on payments at maturity?
Right. So this kind of ties into how the principal and yield tokens are designed. In Tempus, when you deposit into any pool, you are always minted an equal number of principal tokens and yield tokens. If you combine those two tokens together, so the principal on which the yield accrues plus the actual future yield. And that just makes the yield-bearing token, right? Because if you hold the principal, you hold the future yield, you just have the token. So when you mint, you get an equal number of both. And this is what allows also early redemption within our design, is that if you continue to hold an equal number of both, you can take your money out of the pool at any time. And overall, in the Tempus system, because on deposit, people always receive an equal number of principal and yield tokens, this means that the number of the two tokens is always going to be equal within the Tempus system. The reason why this is important is that on each unit of principal, there is an equal number of future yield tokens being locked, and they can only be withdrawn together. So in order for interest to continue to accrue in Tempus, what we need to ensure is that the principal remains locked for the entire period, right? Because if the principal token gets withdrawn, then there will be nothing to accrue interest on, and the yield token won't be worth anything. And this kind of ties into how we designed it, but we make sure that the principal remains locked for the whole period, and we issue equal number of principals and yield tokens, so that within the system, there's always going to be enough yield to cover, any sort of fluctuation, and that there's no risk of default here.
Amazing. Very reassuring. I've got another question which kind of carries on from what you were talking about the implementation. So Liliart has asked, what have been your main challenges that you've had to overcome?
Well, technically speaking, or implementation-wise, like the hardest was like first to build up the AMM and the formula. We tried multiple different approaches. Some of them were built on top of Balancer V2, and some of them were like different papers and different experiments, and we ended up with stable swap or stable pools on Balancer V2, and we tweaked it a little bit for our use case. Then there was a lot of we invested a lot of time into UI UX, so that was the other part. We got really amazing feedback from early community. We basically redesigned our app completely since we launched testnet, so that was also very, very good experience. Yeah, that's technically speaking what was the main the hardest parts of what we did so far.
And I think I can also say a couple of things about like the business development side and the marketing side. I think we're in this cycle right now where DeFi is experiencing like a tiny bit of a bear market compared to where we were, let's say, a year ago or 6 months ago. And I find it kind of difficult to maintain and engage the focus of the community for a longer period of time. This can be solved by various things, but I think it remains a challenge overall, the entire sector, not necessarily for Tempus, but just overall. And this is something that we're trying to overcome. There are a lot of firms out there with a lot of with giant marketing budgets, so we kind of have to match that if we want to stay in the loop and stay relevant. But I think community building in this day and age still kind of remains a challenge. And yeah, going multi-chain, going on L2, offering different products, incorporating GameFi and other things will help us overcome that.
On the topic of other chains, so I've got a joint question with Omarsin and Ryan52923. So the first one is, what are scaling solutions that will be integrated in order to reduce the high transaction cost, and any plans to move over to a layer 2?
Yep, I can take this. So Tempus is mainly a future yield tokenization protocol, and it's a fixed rate protocol, and we're building secondary markets on any source of yield. I think the important thing to point out here is that we have to have sufficient liquidity locked on the same network for us to be worth building a secondary market on top of it. This is kind of the main reason why we went with staked ETH as our primary first integration, and this is why we're going to go towards and integrate with pools which have a lot of TVL, because otherwise, like, it's not really worth speculating or fixing your yield if that pool only has like a couple $1 million in it, right? And this kind of ties into our whole layer 2 strategy. And I think on layer 2 so far, we haven't really seen enough adoption for us to be worth deploying there for in the next couple of months. Although we keep monitoring what's happening over there and keeping an eye on the TVLs and the volumes and everything. And if things change, we can deploy it there very quickly. So that's in terms of layer 2s, and we're also thinking about other layer 1s. And in fact, when we first started Tempus, I think earlier this year, it was basically only Ethereum mainnet that was on our radar, because none of the other networks had any sort of comparable TVL or adoption. But things are now starting to change, so we're actively in discussion with other layer 1s, and then putting together strategies for deploying there as well. And that is part of our medium-term strategy.
Talking about future plans, I've got a question from Soul7, and the question is, what are the future prospects for Tempus, and how do you see Tempus in a year or 2 years?
I think, like, for us, so Tempus is kind of like a long-term project, right? Because what we need to do is we need to integrate with various sources of yield. We start off by integrating on most major protocols on Ethereum mainnet. So we start off by integrating with Lido, then we go integrate with Vari Capital, then we go Yearn, and then Compound, Aave, and then we keep monitoring, and then we keep implementing all different sources of yield, whether that's staking, lending, or liquidity provision between stable pairs, things like that. And then at the same time, we're rolling out more and more integrations over time, more pools, and then we build up the TVL gradually over the next, over the period of next couple of years, until we get to a point where we can completely make Tempus permissionless. We let people set up any pool with any sort of properties that they want, and then at that point make Tempus completely decentralized, in the sense that somebody will still have to maintain it, but it will be permissionless to set up any pool, and then users can just set up any pool they want, fix their yield, provide liquidity to it, and other users can decide whether they want to interact with that contract based on the properties that it has. And I think it's longer term vision is for Tempus to be one of the primary providers of fixed yield for overall. And not only for retail users or institutions, but also for DAOs who are looking for more consistent sources of yield, and instead of being exposed to fluctuations.
Amazing. I think this will bring me on to my last question I'm going to ask from the community, and maybe this kind of touches on this idea of decentralization. And being permissionless and what have you. So the question comes from Belian Swaya, and the question is, what platform do you have in mind for governance to occur on, and do you have any estimated time for that to be launched?
Right. So first of all, our token contract has been deployed with snapshot support. So I think the first form of governance that we will have after mainnet is kind of the soft governance that we have through Snapshot, and then later on we can, we're working on a plan to make Tempus even more decentralized and permissionless. But I think, judging based on the success of other protocols that have taken a similar approach, I think what we're going for is gradual decentralization over time. There are no specific timelines to do this, but we will be working on soon after the mainnet launch. So I think it will be rolled out early next year.
Amazing. I think that's something that we all, wish to achieve, is complete decentralization of our organizations, and it's definitely not a simple task as it sounds to be said. But it is an interesting challenge, and I'm sure that you will have a lot of experiences along the way. But we've finished really with the community questions. I was just wondering if you had any kind of closing thoughts that you would like to say to the community before we, would end the AMA, as I know that you guys have a lot to get on with, and I think that you've answered a fantastic range of questions, and it's only fair to.
I'm very impressed by the quality of questions. I think community is very attentive, and they're very smart. So thanks for all of that. I think I don't have too many any sort of special announcement to make, but just to re-emphasize those things that I mentioned before. So Tempus is hiring, so check out the link that we've sent in the Tempus channel. Check out the angel list, see if you're interested. And then in addition to that, obviously we have the mainnet launch coming up next week. So if you want to participate and earn some more money on your staked ETH to provide liquidity or fix your future yield, I think this will be a great opportunity to do so, to test out the product if you haven't already done so. And obviously, mainnet experience is going to be completely different to what we had on testnet. So real market conditions will make the whole thing look very exciting. But yeah, I think that's all from me. It was great to be here, and thanks very much for organizing this.
It's a pleasure to have you both here, and also we have a number of Tempus members in the community as well. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you very much everyone in the community for spending the time to listen to all of this interesting information about Tempus, and also sharing your questions regarding the SIRS NFT giveaway. There will be a selection for 5 people from those who've submitted their questions, and I believe that Tempus will be announcing the winners of that giveaway, and we will also be announcing it here in our server. And once the announcement's been made, there will be potentially a small delay until you'll be able to claim your NFT, but further information will be provided on that. So thanks once again for joining us. I think it's been fantastic AMA, and a lot of very, very thoroughly answered and fantastic questions as well from the community. But we're looking forward to see what comes out of the project in the future, and hopefully we can keep a fantastic relationship between the projects, and maybe see how we can work together there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.